Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Top 10 edition of Magic Mike's, proudly sponsored by our Patreon supporters and CoolStuffInc.com. You can find cool stuff in stock every day, and check out our co-sponsor, Mana Traders, the best tool to enhance your Magic Online experience. Check out the code MAGICMIKES for 12% off your next subscription with Mana Traders. I am Evan Irwin. We're going to get started each week by saying hello to my two co-hosts, Power Dragon.
What's up, everybody? This should be a fun one because I think we're going to have a lot of different opinions.
Ruben Bressler.
Absolutely. I mean, so many cards, and particularly because it's in an area that not one of us, I don't think, is a serious expert in the lore, but lots of unique stuff coming down the pike in the Doctor Who expansion.
Yeah, this is one of those that I wish, I mean, just sort of like when 40K came around, I was like, man, I kind of wish I knew a little bit more about this because this seems really cool and super thematic, but I don't really know any of this stuff, so it's okay.
Yeah.
That said, we begin with our choice for the top comment from our last top 10 in a segment we call Honorable Mention, where Ruben will tell us who was the most eloquent, letting us know what card we did not choose as one of our top 10 Wilds of Eldraine limited cards. Ruben?
So this week's winner is Flyboy245, and Flyboy writes, with as good as the tap deck is in the format, and how many of the cards that go in that deck were on the list, I'm surprised that Freeze in Place didn't make anybody's top 10. The only time it's not a perfect turn 2 is when your opponent doesn't have a creature on board, which you're also fine with as the control deck. For a mere 2 mana, not only do you get to tap a creature for 3 turns, but you also get to scry 2. It's tempo, it's control, it's great early, it plays great late. I always have 2 to 3 in my deck, and it feels great.
Interesting. Freeze in Place is a blue and a generic mana for a common sorcery. This is tap target creature an opponent controls and put 3 stun counters on it and then scry 2. This is a card for me in terms of limited per se that I think it did get better over time as that tempo was really more and more important as the format went on. But certainly when the format first came out, I was like, this is unplayable jank. I can't ever play this ever, right. But it got better over time.
This is similar to me in many ways to when people started playing Delay in Old Modern to deal with Ancient Grudge. Ancient Grudge was able to destroy an artifact, but then also had flashback. So how do you counteract that? Well, you delay it. You exile it for 3 turns. This is a removal spell for 3 turns that doesn't have removes from play abilities. You can't reanimate the creature. You can't get the Leaves Play effect. You don't get any of those triggers. It just stays tapped. And not only that, but there are a number of untap effects in the format, and the stun counters also counter those. And so of the things that, there are a couple things like this that tap things, it's a whole archetype. So there's plenty of cards that say tap target creature.
Right.
Of those, this is the most control-y, keeping something locked down for 3 turns. And it also has this scry 2 allowing you to dig deep into your deck.
Yeah, so Freeze in Place, interesting pick here. Thank you, Flyboy245, for being part of the show. Please contact us on social media, on Twitter, DMs at Magic Mike's Cast. No, it's not X, it's Twitter. Thanks again to CoolStuffInc.com for sponsoring this giveaway, and stay tuned for our top 10 list this week, and maybe you can win next Top 10's free gift certificate. Because we are here to talk about Doctor Who. There is lots to love and a lot of interesting, kind of weird, definitely unique stuff about the Whoniverse. Is that what they call it?
The Who, yeah, sure, the Whoniverse.
I don't know. Like, I know they refer to fans as Whovians. I don't know if there's a name for just the Doctor Who.
I could have sworn I've read that somewhere.
Yeah.
But either way,
I have friends that have gone to Gallifrey 1. Gallifrey 1 is a convention here in Los Angeles, and they've gone for many, many years, but that's about as far as my expertise goes.
Fair enough. Well, in terms of my list, and I don't know about y'all, but I only have 1 reprint on the list, and we'll go ahead and get started with number 10 with my one and only reprint. I thought this was a wonderful selection. The fact that the card had gotten to started getting to stupid numbers and be very, very expensive because it had been originally be reprinted in Mercadian Masks, and now we got a super cool version with super cool artwork on Snuff Out. Snuff Out is a black and 3 generic mana for an uncommon instant. If you control a swamp, you may pay 4 life rather than pay this spell's mana cost. Destroy a target non-black creature. It can't be regenerated.
Yeah, this one is a Pauper All-Star. Also has seen play in Legacy and not Modern, but seen play in any deck that it can be played in alongside Death Shadow. And so had been making its way up the ranks in price, popular and pauper, as I mentioned, and well deserving of a reprint, and also just a really excellent reprint from a flavor perspective here as well.
Yeah, it's a type of card that's kind of surprising that we haven't had more reprints of this, because there's not really a reason other than just we hadn't found a good place to do it, I guess.
Right.
But yeah, I'm all in favor. This is a card people wanted for a long time. It's one of those cards that's just slowly crept up in price. Like, hell, we used to go through bulk just to pull those out at one point because they weren't really bulk. So like, yeah, it's cool to see that one get a reprint.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that, you know, the Garrick versus Liliana stuff is like $16+. The OG foil is $216 right now as of recording. God help us all. So, move on here to number 10.
The smile robots are excellent in the art here as well.
Oh, they're amazing. I mean, that's like half the fun, right? Ruben, what's number 10?
My number 10, you know, my list is mostly references that I get. And I decided to do that because it felt like the entire set was made with such love and care. And mechanics are one thing, but it's Commander. I think every card is going to find a home in Commander. I want to highlight the ones that speak to me on a higher level. And I think that it's great that we have cards, and a card named Wibbly Wobbly Timey Wimey, which is like a famous catchphrase from Doctor Who. It's a famous moment. So Wibbly Wobbly Timey Wimey is a generic in the blue for a sorcery. That's a sentence that I've said. In which you time travel. For each suspended card you own, and for each permanent you control with a time counter on it, you may add or remove a time counter, and you draw a card. So the 2-mana sorcery or instant, draw a card and do the set's keyword thing, typically is a halfway decent card. You've got things like Careful Planning, I think is the proliferate one. There's a couple of cards that do something like this, and this one seems great.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of this because again, you know, like you're saying, it's referencing something from the series. It's a phrase everybody knows, but it's a card that even kind of fits the name along with the mechanic and what it's trying to do. So I think it just checks all the right boxes. It's actually really cool. And the art's really neat too.
Yes.
Yeah, this is, I mean, my absolute favorite episode is Blink. I mean, that's the episode I tell people to watch first. This is this part of the episode is actually my favorite part because I don't even want to spoil it. It's so brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant.
The scripting is really interesting.
It's unreal. Like I could not believe how good it was my take on it. So yeah, fantastic card. Love the tie-in. Time travel's a cool mechanic. There's doing so much suspend stuff in the set, or in the decks rather. Super cool. Power Dragon, what's number 10?
Unfortunately, my number 10 is higher on somebody's list, so we're going to hold off on that one for a bit.
Well, we'll get there. It'll be fine. Let's go ahead and move on here to our number 9. My number 9 here is you know, as I've played Magic, as Old Man Magic, who was there when the rocks were soft, what we've seen over time is that Wizards is like 2-mana counterspells. It's often a bridge too far. 2-mana counterspells, you got to work for it. 2-mana counterspells, they need some kind of caveat. They need something, you need to bargain to get a 2-mana counterspell or whatever it is. But they're like, you know, when we hit just the 3-mana mark, we can counter things and do all sorts of fun stuff. And then they're like, how about we just do like crazy stuff for 3-mana with a counterspell? And that shows up in Reverse the Polarity. For 2 blue and a generic mana, it's a rare instant that says choose one, counter all other spells, lol. Switch each creature's power and toughness until end of turn, or creatures can't be blocked this turn. So you want to talk about your Swiss Army knife of a counterspell? Yeah. This thing's incredible.
Yeah, I am terrified because I have a Arcades Walls deck. Oh. So this is like an instant speed one-sided wrath against me, which I don't love. But also counter all other spells. You know, if you're I've loved a Whirlwind Denial. If I can get a Whirlwind Denial to counter all of the copies of, you know, Weather the Storm or Tendrils of Agony that are on the stack, that's even better. Much less a Bloodbraid Elf or what have you. And you have an offensive option. That's the problem sometimes with these counter spells, is that you've got a defensive option and maybe like a card draw option in the middle. Right. This one lets you go offensive with your counter spell, which is really good.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was looking at. It's like, it's that type of card that you just don't end up holding on to when there's nothing good to hit with it. It's like, and honestly, if you had a theme deck that even did something like Merfolk or something, it's like, okay, well now you have a counter spell that you can just have for later, but also a way to make sure your creatures connect when the time comes. So yeah, I'm a big fan of this type of card.
Yeah, this card seems just crazy. And also, like, if you're sitting there in the commander game and two people are like going back and forth and you're like, all right, stop it. Just get all that crap out of here. Swords while you do X, do Y, I'm doing a Wrath with the so-and-so. Nope. Just cut it all out. We're moving on.
Yeah.
Ruben.
I also foresee that this has a possibility in competitive commander, in CEDH. Because the stacks in those formats can get ridiculous depending on the types of decks being played. I've seen stacks that are 7-8 spells and abilities deep on turn 3 just because you have 4 players. So a possibility there.
Cool. Ruben, what's number 9?
Turns out that a creature being able to destroy another creature when it enters the battlefield isn't as common as you might think. In my head, they happen all the time. In my head, it's like, oh, there's a Bone Shredder or a Ravenous Chupacabra every other week. Turns out that's like almost the end of the list until we get Dalek Drone. The Daleks are one of the most iconic bad guys in all of Doctor Who. Felt like I wanted to have a Dalek on the list, and this card is great. For 3 generic black, you get a 3/3 artifact creature Dalek with flying and menace and exterminate. When Dalek Drone enters the battlefield, destroy target creature and opponent controls. That player loses 3 life.
Yeah, this is just like the rub-ins, right? Like you lose a creature, like you lose 3 life, and then now you still have to deal with this 3/3 flyer that happens to also have menace. So you need, like, I don't know, 2 spirit tokens or whatever to be able to even block this thing.
Yeah.
Like this is just a good card. Even more so if you have a way to reanimate this or whatever, because now if you're in one of those sack reanimate decks, you actually have a kill condition because you can just be picking stuff off, dealing 3 damage a shot.
Yeah, it turns out, like, if you do look through the list of, like, destroy target creature, there's not a lot of creatures that do that. I mean, some that do things like fight or whatever, or destroy creatures with defender or whatever,
Right.
But sometimes you get all upside with Necrotals and Chupacabras, and even up more upside with Noxious Gear Hulks and things. But a lot of times it's just you're kind of reaching for that effect, and that's a super sweet creature to do so. And I just, I love the Daleks anyway. They're just like weird and out to get you, and it's just kind of their thing.
They're very 1960s BBC.
Yeah.
Right? They're very
That's a good way to describe
this
them.
This is the budget we have, but let's make it work.
We're going to make
the
some really
can-do
cool
attitude of Doctor Who is comes through in the Daleks.
And
they do end up
the
being
test
terrifying.
of time.
Yeah.
That's the thing, right? They've still made them feel threatening, and regardless of how goofy they look, like they've made them feel very relevant and scary even in modern day.
Yeah, they're like sort of sci-fi zombies. You know what I mean? Like they just keep coming, and that's what makes them kind of scary. Power Dragon, what's number 9?
My number 9 is the possibly most boring name card in the set that if you didn't know it was Doctor Who, you'd kind of be confused. But Dan Lewis. It's a colorless and red for a 2/2 legendary creature human. Which is awesome, first off, because it's just a 2 mana creature you can have as your commander, which means you can almost always have this effect in play, which is pretty awesome.
Mm-hmm.
But non-creature, non-equipment artifacts you control are equipment in addition to their other types and have the ability, equipped creature gets +1/+0 with equip cost of 1. And this is also can be a companion. So you can play it alongside other cards, which is great in your command zone. But this is cool because one of the problems I think equipment decks have is having to find space for all this equipment and also have the cards that care about you having all the equipment. This is one that's like, you know what? Maybe I'm making a lot of treasure. Maybe I'm making blood tokens or clue tokens or whatever. Now I can also use these to equip things and get all those bonuses in addition to doing what the tokens actually do on their own.
Right.
Yeah, and I know it's a doctor's companion because you can have 2 commanders of the other is the doctor. Because what Wizards I think has found, at least sort of long tail, is that it's really difficult to make companions that you don't just one day find the most busted pair and just do that. And so they could really, and also very thematically, you're pairing the Doctor's Companion. The Doctor's Companion is a big thing in the show. I thought that was super cool.
Absolutely.
And they also get to highlight here, one of the first cards that really shows sort of a character, an actor from the show. And they did a great job of getting all the likenesses so well on all of these cards.
Yeah, this card's very exciting. I mean, 2 mana, 2/2 human, so there's a bunch of decks in Commander that are going to want that anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Non-creature, non-equipment artifacts. That does not say non-token.
Exactly.
All your blood tokens can now equip. All your treasure can now equip. All your soul rings, right? And especially mana artifacts, because it doesn't matter if your equipment are tapped. So they can tap to equip themselves, which is great.
And a lot of times they're not doing anything on turn 7 or 8 anyway. So you're just like, well, now I'm going to load somebody up.
That's right. Might as well punch somebody with a soul ring.
There you go. So let's move on here to number 8. My number 8 here is it's always exciting. No matter, I don't care what it is. Because what we've seen is it doesn't matter what the stupid effect is. If you put the magical word storm on it, everyone loses their minds and goes, oh my God, what are you going to do now? I don't know, but I do know I love the name, I like the flavor, the image is great on all of history all at once.
Yep.
For 2 blue, 2 generic mana, it's a rare sorcery that has time travel for each suspended card you own and each permanent you control with a time counter on it. You may add or remove a time counter, and it has storm. Whenever you cast this spell, copy it for each spell cast before it this turn. So, what could possibly go wrong? Said every designer who ever makes a storm card. I don't know, but it's possible.
I think that our number 8 ties in pretty nicely with your number 8. So I'm going to go ahead and tell you what ours is. Because your card was the other of the 2 cards in the set that had this following factoid about it. Previous to this set, I don't think that there was a Magic card that was not a creature that only had 2 keywords on it as its only text that wasn't a creature and didn't have any other text. And that was Ardent Plea, which was Cascade and Exalted.
Right.
Now we have this card, which is Time Travel Storm, and we also have Into the Time Vortex, which is 4 generic and a red, Cascade Rebound.
Yeah, I was excited about this because it's the type of card that I think low-key could be kind of expensive down the road. Because it goes into a lot of decks, surprisingly, and it's very easy to use. You don't really even have to work for it. It's just, cool, I'm just going to get some free stuff and just keep doing this. And try to get stuff that's 4 mana if I can. This, it's just a cool, different type of card that somebody's going to find a dumb use for.
So,
absolutely.
For those who may not know, Cascade, so it's 5 mana sorcery. So Cascade says when you cast this spell, exile cards from the top of your library until you exile a non-land card that costs less. You may cast it without paying its mana cost, put the rest on the bottom in a random order. Rebound says if you cast this spell from your hand, exile it as it resolves. At the beginning of your next upkeep, you may cast this card from exile without paying its mana cost. You're going to Cascade twice for 5. It's wonderful. And if you look at the extended art in the collector packs, it just says Cascade Rebound.
And all of history all at once just says Time Travel Storm. Just put those right next to each other. Rich, can we just look at how good these cards look. There was a card called Time Stop that just said end the turn, had no other text on it. There was a foil in 10th edition, I think. I just love the empty, simplistic text box on both of these cards.
Absolutely fantastic. Let's move on here to number 7. So, one of the things that I have certainly complained about over the last couple years is the lack of simplicity on a lot of Magic cards. And the idea that you can get a lot of design in just a few words and really appreciating that as much as possible. And so what I think I'm going to have to do, not because I want to, but what I have to do at this point is recognize that we're moving more and more into a very modal world, a very modal, choose your own adventure. But are those adventures you're choosing nice, clear, concise, cool, interesting choices? And I think they did that really nicely with Crisis of Conscience. It's 2 white, 4 generic mana for a rare sorcerer that says choose one, destroy all tokens, or destroy all non-land, non-token permanents. And that is just a really cool, interesting, different way to slice and dice a Wrath, a Wrath, quote unquote, than they've done in a while. I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of this one too. And this is kind of what I wanted Farewell to be designed like, right? Like it gives you the choice of destroying multiple things, but it just destroys them. It doesn't exile them. It's like a totally fair card, but can still be somewhat of a reset. Or if you happen to be the tokens player, you can just be like, you know what? Let's just keep my 10 guys around and get rid of everything else. I'm good with that.
Yeah, it's a really interesting way to make a new Wrath. We've talked to death about Farewell. It's not our favorite, but the thing that modal cards want you to do is make a choice, and this one does. And it's a really good way to do it.
And apparently, if he just touches these two strands together, the Daleks are finished, and that's a crisis of conscience, isn't it?
There you go.
Ruben, what is your number 7?
My number 7 is a card that the only thing remotely similar to it was in a previous Commander expansion. But the fact that we get something like this in the Doctor Who set makes a ton of sense. A lot of people know about the sonic screwdriver. A lot of people know about the TARDIS. But another common tool in the Doctor's weapons belt is the psychic paper. Which, can be a FBI badge, it can be a passport, it can be a library card, what have you. And in Magic, it can also kind of be anything. So 2 generic mana, artifact equipment that equips for 2. As psychic paper becomes attached to a creature, choose a creature card name and a creature type. The equipped creature has Ward 1. It can't be blocked, and its name and creature type are the last chosen name and creature type. The first thing that comes to mind for me is the Rat Colony / Relentless Rats decks that have a legendary rat that isn't named that as their commander. But if you put this on your Kerumonics, it suddenly becomes a rat colony. If you put this on your, Marrow-Gnar, it suddenly becomes a Relentless Rats. Just a really cool card. I'm excited to have an 8th 7 dwarf in play. I'm sure there's a ton of stuff that you can do with psychic paper.
Yeah, I don't even know what I would do with this card. It's one of those ones I looked at and I'm just like, there's probably something really neat, right? Just because of how it's worded. But I was just like, I don't know what to do with this yet. So I'm just waiting till somebody breaks this thing, and then I'm just going to go, oh, that's what we're supposed to do with this.
Yeah. I mean, someone's going to come, and it also feels like some weird thing that might happen in the future, this is the type of card that's easy to kind of not think about much, be like, oh, that was kind of weird and neat. And then 5 years down the road, they're going to make something that, as long as it has the same name, something stupid happens, and oh yeah, psychic paper. That's exactly what you need. Power Dragon, what's number 7?
Yeah, this one's a good one because I like the fact that blue is doing something different here with the creatures. So big fan of this one. It's Renegade Silent. It's 3 colorless and a blue for a 3/3 alien horror, which is actually just a cool creature type to have on Magic. Mm-hmm. But at the beginning of your end step, go up to 1 target creature you don't control and put a +1/+1 counter on Renegade Silent. And then Renegade Silent phases out. So this is actually the card that allows you to be annoying to where this thing's going to grow every turn. You can get your attack in. You look at an opponent and say, you know what? I don't like that creature. How about it can't attack me? And then they can't even kill this card because it goes away at the end of the turn. So it's super annoying, but does kind of like the fun thing blue should be doing of manipulating things and whatever. But it's not just on a counter spell or whatever. It's actually on a creature doing some fun interactive stuff.
Yeah, this is the type of card that made me appreciate the fact that Goad is evergreen now in Commander sets, because it forces that interaction. I've certainly seen Commander games where you just kind of go around the table and no one does nothing and no one's attacking anybody and blah, blah, blah. It's can someone start going now? And Goad is you must do it. You must make a choice. And I always appreciated that about that mechanic.
I mean, this card is not killable at sorcery speed. Anything that isn't killable at sorcery speed seems good. It's Obzadot in that way. The fact that you can also keep the most dangerous thing on the board at bay away from you and point it at somebody else, also huge. And it gets bigger and bigger and bigger every turn. So
it also means it's going to survive most of the board sweepers as well, since those are sorcery speed from your opponents.
Yeah, I mean, look how creepy it looks. Look at the 4 fingers,
That
things,
too.
man.
This is
That's
not a episode I saw, but I recognize this image.
Right. This is a scary, very iconic, bad guy from the series. Let's move over to number 6. So this is a hell of a fun set, interesting set, weird set, cool set, and I got such a kick out of this. Like, it makes me want to go track down what in the hell happened in the show for this to happen, and B, I get so much joy from a Magic the Gathering card called Dinosaurs on a Spaceship. I just think that's amazing. Dinosaurs on a Spaceship is a white-red 4-generic mana for a 7/7 rare dinosaur with Vigilance and Trample. Other dinosaurs you control get +1/+1 and have Vigilance and Trample. However, it has Suspend 4 for a white, red, and 3 generic mana. So for 5 mana, you suspend it for 4. And whenever a time counter is removed from Dinosaurs on a Spaceship while it's exiled, you create a 2/2 red and white dinosaur creature token with flying and haste. So even while it's ticking down, it's making scary creatures. And when it does come down, all those get even bigger. And now they don't even have to tap to attack, and they're trampling. That's awesome.
Yeah. This card's enormous. This is so much power. This is so big.
So
this
large.
I mean, the worst you're getting is 7 power Vigilance Trample and pump your other dinosaurs for 6 mana.
Right.
At best, if you got a bunch of time travel shenanigans, if you get to keep all the tokens, assuming you don't up the number of counters and then lower the number of counters, you're getting 4 tokens, which then become 3/3s with this buff. That's 19 power just on this card in your dinosaurs deck.
God almighty.
Yeah, I'm a fan because even if you're just playing this in the straight up like Naya Dinosaurs build that's been around, which one, by the way, great timing on the set, having dinosaur cards with the dinosaur set coming in another month.
Yeah.
But this is actually really cool because now you don't have to worry about overcommitting to the board, right? If the board starts getting gummed up and you kind of feel that those board sweepers coming, you can just be like, you know what? I'm just going to suspend this and I'll just work on making a dude every turn. And then eventually I'll just have a big body after you sweep the board. So yeah, I like everything this card's bringing to the table for sure. This is my type of Magic card.
Yeah, man. The tokens have like evasion as well and haste and like, come on, man. Card's sweet. Ruben, what's number 6?
My number 6 is the higher on somebody else's list.
Ooh, okay then. Well, Power Dragon, what's number 6?
My number 6 is I have not seen this episode and don't know what this even is, but I feel like I'm missing something here. But Carvanista Loyal Lupari. It's a 4 colorless and a green for a 5/5 alien dog soldier that actually has a adventure that's sorcery speed. Humans you control gain indestructible until end of turn for 2 mana, which is pretty solid. Sad that it has to be sorcery speed, but totally reasonable. But the creature itself has vigilance, trample, and haste, and then whenever it attacks, you put a +1/+1 counter on each human you control. This card is just doing so much stuff, right? It can let you attack recklessly into stuff if you want to, knowing you're not going to lose anything with the adventure side. But then if you're playing any type of humans deck, this is man's best friend, I guess, being able to put +1/+1s on all your humans. This is actually just a really fun all-around card.
Yeah, this card's a house. This card just does all the things. Like, I don't really know. I'm sure there's a wonderful story reason as to why that adventure is sorcery speed. And
dude, it's got a light axe or whatever. I don't even know what's going on in this picture.
Fences is what it's doing. Card's nuts.
I mean, just look at his little face. Like, this, first of all, also this card's enormous. I mean, 5/5 vigilance, trample, haste for 5. That's a reality smasher.
Mm-hmm.
But also you get all this other value, and also it's an alien dog soldier. What is not to love?
Not just that, I just realized it's because it has haste, you actually get to attack with this and pump your team for 5 mana.
Yeah.
This card's dumb.
And you're going to do something like give this the creature type human, so it's going to pump itself at some point as well, because why not, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, goodness gracious. This thing is a giant monster of pain, and I love it. All right, let's move on here to number 5. Let's see. So my number 5 here was a card that, like, as I was looking through and kind of taking, I was like, oh, that's neat, that's cool, that's sweet. And, it gets a little dangerous, particularly as we get higher up on this list, for my list anyway. The lower they go on those mana costs, the higher sometimes the prices get, because people go, well, it's a commander set, but there are other formats that you can play this in. And man, they've gotten just more and more aggressive with printing clones. And we have a flesh duplicate that now exists as a 2-blue 0/0 rare creature shapeshifter rebel. You may have flesh duplicate enter the battlefield as a copy of any creature on the battlefield, except it has Vanishing 3 if that creature doesn't have Vanishing. Now, Vanishing means a permanent with Vanishing 3 enters the battlefield with 3 time counters on it. At the beginning of your upkeep, remove a time counter from it. When the last is removed, sacrifice it, and that's cool. But we also have a whole mechanic that's going to keep this thing around called time travel. And proliferate stuff can keep it around. Like, there's lots of ways to make sure this 2-mana clone stays a 2-mana clone. And that's aggressively costed.
Dude, this artwork is like a creepy zombie version of Mr. Fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know what's going on here. Like, this is why it's like fun to not know the IP sometimes. Because I'm just looking at this going, what is this? Yeah.
Freaky.
But cool card, though. I agree with you.
Yeah.
I think this is the cheapest, reasonable shapeshifter we have, or clone,
Right.
that really has a chance of doing some pretty big things. And if you can keep getting this back out of your yard, you could just reset it to the bigger creature that comes out at that point.
Yeah, just blink it.
Absolutely. I mean, think about the last 2-mana clone we got, Phantasmal Image, and how much it still sees play in Casual Commander, but also how much of a powerhouse it was in every format that it was legal in, at least when it first came out.
For a very long time.
2-mana clone. This one survives being targeted.
Mm-hmm.
How long is a game gonna last for the Vanishing 3 to even matter? If you're copying something, huge and relevant. If you copy a Wormcoil engine or whatever.
Yeah, and again, you can blink this thing, whereas you couldn't before when you had to target things, so that's really neat. It's a fairly pushed card, really interesting. Ruben, what's number 5?
So my top 5, I decided to go with episodes that I recognized and faithful reproductions of the stories of those episodes in a very tiny text box. Something that they did really interesting in this set is that they took entire storylines, took entire things and archetypes, and sort of juiced them down to their essence. A lot of my stuff in the first, my bottom 5 of my top 10 were things I'm used to, wibbly wobbly Daleks, things like that. My top 5 are concrete images of episodes, and I start with This Is How It Ends, which I saw the entire, that was the finale of the Matt Smith Doctor, where Amy and Rory, spoiler alert, get got by the Weeping Angels. But the way that Weeping Angels get you is they send you back in time, and they went back in time together. And Amy had to make a choice to go after Rory, and the opponent will have to make a choice with This Is How It Ends. Target creature's owner shuffles it into their library, then faces a villainous choice. They either lose 5 life, or they shuffle another creature they own into their library. It echoes what happened in the very end of the episode, and that episode made me weep openly and for a long time, and this card is a beautiful representation of that.
Yeah, this is just a good all-around card, because you already get to deal with the one card you're trying to deal with. But depending on where you're at in the game, it's like they may not be able to pay the 5 life comfortably, so now they lose a second thing, right? Like, this is a cool card to represent a really iconic episode.
Yeah, I mean, and this is way better than sort of the Punisher mechanic, because they kind of call it the Punisher mechanic and the villainous choice. They're like, look, these choices are going to suck. It's not like something that you can get around or something your opponent makes a choice for you and it kind of sucks for you. No, it sucks for them, and it's going to guarantee to suck for them. 4 mana, that gets shuffled. You lose 5 of that other thing gets shuffled. That's good, clean living right there. All right, Power Dragon, what's number 5?
My number 5 is River Song. Colorless blue-red for a 2/2 human Time Lord rogue. It has 2 abilities here. The first is Meet in Reverse. So you draw a card from the bottom of your library rather than the top, which is actually always fun to do something different and see if you can manipulate that. But then you have spoilers. Whenever an opponent scries, surveils, or searches their library, put a +1/+1 on this card. Then River Song deals damage to that player equal to its power. This feels like it could have a home in some of these competitive commander things, where you've got everybody's searching, drawing cards, surveilling, doing all this extra stuff. Like, this could be an extra, who knows, in one trip of the table might be an extra 9 damage that this thing does or more, right? Like, this is actually pretty sweet. And there are a few cards that just let you put stuff on the bottom of the library that you can manipulate and draw different ways. So I kind of like that you could build around this a little bit and do some really fun stuff.
Yeah, this card's super dope. I mean, like the fact that it just kind of sort of silently just kind of hangs out and says, you sure you want to do that tutor? Because you're going to take 3, and then that does tutor, and then they're going to take 4, and then, you know what I'm saying? Like, it just kind of, it builds and it builds and it builds, and you can't really just ignore it. Like, yeah, you're doing that silly draw from the bottom thing, that's cute and all, but no, that second ability to me is the real power here, and the reason it's already like a $3-4+ card, because the whole game is now like, is that River Song going to kill me if I do this, or really get me down to a low life total?
Fetch lands are going to hurt.
Yep.
Fetch lands.
You can even play Field of Ruin to really needle your opponent.
Yep. And there's a bunch of stuff I've seen River Song decks. First of all, with Time Stream Navigator, Rivals of Ixalan All-Star. If you've been wondering why that one has been leaving bulk boxes and actually getting put into cases, it puts itself on the bottom of its owner's library, and then you draw it again. But yeah, I mean, there's a ton of cards. Card that we previewed on this show, Cleansing Wildfire, goes real well with River Song. You know, anything that is sort of anything with Demonstrate that shuffles or scries. There's a card I love called Noble Benefactor that I used to play in my Blink deck that makes everybody search their library for a thing. So River Song becomes like a 5/5 or a 6/6 immediately. But again, you don't need to build around this card. This card will just get big on its own.
Right, because scrying, surveilling, and searching is like just something that happens. This is, you know, sort of the Tarmogoyf thing, right? It's, you got to build around that card. You just play Magic the Gathering, and it's going to be pretty decent. And this card seems to be just the same way. All right, let's move on here to number 4. This was a card that I believe was Cool Stuff Inc.'s preview for the set, and one of them anyway. And it's a really interesting card. And I kind of have a weird theme of copying things on this list, but that's okay because Nanogene Conversion is creepy as hell with the weird gas mask thing on everybody's face is weird and whatever. But it's a blue and 3 generic mana for a rare sorcery that says choose target creature you control. Each other creature becomes a copy of that creature until end of turn, except it isn't legendary. And quote, are you my mummy? You know that's just full of the creep factor there. That's full creep right there. Creepy.
Yeah, this is like the classic Doctor Who playing to the British audience of being the gas masks from World War II playing on that history kind of situation. This one I feel like is a shoe-in to be a staple of Commander. This one just feels like obvious that it's gonna do something.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. It's one of those cards I looked at and just feel like whether it's today or 6 months from now, whatever, people are going to come around to coming back to this set and going like, hey, why is nobody playing this card? Right? And I think it's going to find a home in quite a few places.
Yeah, I played enough Mirror Weave.
What I was just about to bring up.
Block. There you go. Yeah, go ahead, buddy. Go off.
No, I was literally looking it up. I was like, I need to look up Mirror Weave so it does exactly what I thought it did.
Oh, I don't have to look up Mirror Weave. I've turned so many Spectral Procession tokens into Wizened Sense.
Yep.
And like in response to your Cloud Thresher, all of my things are 7/7s. But this one's at sorcery speed, but more importantly, it does let you copy your commander.
Right.
So all of your creatures can be commanders.
Yeah.
So all of your creatures are River Songs, right? All of your creatures do something and they will all trigger.
And then what was the artifact that lets you play sorceries and instant speed?
Vidalcan
Ori.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Get one of those going. Let's go. You know. Oh, you want to crack a fetch land? Brr, 7 River Songs showed up. Like, let's go.
all of my creatures are Brothers Yamazaki's.
Very nice.
Let's probably pick something better than that. But you get my point.
Yeah. You do silly stuff with it. It's Commander. Ruben, what's number 4?
My number 4 is a card that I don't think it's a good card. That doesn't matter because this episode of Doctor Who terrified me. And I think it's a lesser known episode of Doctor Who, but to me, when I think of like, that's a scary episode of television. Forget Doctor Who. Scary episode of television, The Flood of Mars. was a terrifying episode of television. If you have not seen this episode, highly recommend it. It's during the Tennant run. So, you know, it's got a lot of people's favorite Doctor going on. And it's got that classic Doctor Who thing of like, we're all trapped in here together, but there's a terrifying otherworldly threat. And they went with the most terrifying thing in the universe is something that is persistent. It's something that never gives up. It's something that never gets tired. And that is water. Water always wins is a thing that they say over and over again. And like, it's just these water aliens that were asleep under the surface of Mars in humankind's first like attempt at colonizing Mars. And history remembers that history doesn't remember why they disappeared, but the Doctor's there and they've got these like weird water zombies. And it is terrifying and it's very good. And that's what we got here. We've got 2 generic blue for a 3/3 alien zombie horror with Island Walk, and water always wins. Whenever the flood of Mars attacks, put a flood counter on another target creature or land. If it's a creature, it becomes a copy of the flood of Mars. And if it's a land, it becomes an island in addition to its other types. And that is exponential.
Right. Keep making more flood of Mars, which make more flood of Mars, which then floods everyone.
Everything gets flooded.
Yeah, not just that. You can start turning off lands and just saying, well, you have an island now.
Right.
So there's some fun stuff you can really do with this. And just like you're saying, it just becomes persistent, right? The more of those you make, it's okay, now I have 3 of them. Now I'm really getting to do stuff every turn. Or potentially just have 3 or 4 unblockable creatures every turn, right? So this card could get out of hand pretty quickly.
Yeah, I mean, my God, once you got 2 or 3 of these, like you're turning people's entire mana base off at that point. Like, okay, you have black mana.
It is in addition to their other types.
Oh, that's fair. Yeah. In addition to those, okay, fine, but you can make unblockable guys. And that's
but you're turning off their commanders. Like, we're not messing around.
It does say to the target creature. You don't have to be your creature. It's just anybody's like that. That's a flood of Mars. That's a flood of Mars. Awesome. All right, Power Dragon. What's number 4?
My number 4 is a little bit surprising that this was on a Gruul card, actually, but it's bigger on the inside. 3 colorless, green-red for an aura. You get to enchant an artifact or a land, and the permanent has tap this card. Target player adds 2 mana of any one color. The next spell they cast this turn has Cascade. Quick and simple and to the point, but this card is great. Especially if you're playing anything that ramps up and needs more mana for big things, like casting your dragons and getting something else behind it, like all kinds of stuff you can do with this card. Like I immediately read this and went, I have like 10 ideas for this card right now. So like, yeah, I'm into this.
You know, like it's kind of a group hug, but it's still, it can just be for you. It doesn't have to be for everybody else. But you know, like, hey, you need help with your next big spell. Yeah, let's do some politicking. This card seems super sweet.
Yeah, Table's about to die, but he's got a Wrath in his deck, or she's got a board wipe of some kind. Mm-hmm. I'll give you Cascade, I guess. This was my number 6.
Nice.
Immediately red-green Itali, right? Like this is the card you want in that deck. There's tons of red-green big mana spell decks. Every Omnath, you know, to say the least. I love this card. I think this card's great. And it also evokes that overarching feeling. Some of the cards in the set aren't evoking specific moments, but this is everything. The TARDIS is bigger on the inside. Everybody knows what that is.
I mean, just use it to play into the time vortex. Like, God help us all. We're just cascading forever. Let's go. I love it. That's great.
And put it on an equipment also.
Yeah.
Like if you just have a Lightning Greave sitting around.
Why not?
I just realized I needed this card in a TARDIS frame.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is kind of weird. Like, there's only the one surge foil thing, right? And
yeah, like I needed that to happen. Why is that not a thing?
Interesting.
That's unfortunate. Let's move on here to number 3. This was a card that caught on with Commander players pretty quickly, and I was like, "Oh, that's really weird." And I was like, "Wait a minute. Does this do what I think it does?" And I think it does. And the more I read, this kind of the scarier it got rather, because to understand what's happening with this card, you have to understand what Myriad does. The Myriad says, whenever this creature attacks for each opponent other than the defending player, you may create a token that's a copy of this creature that's tapped and attacking that player or planeswalker they control. If one or more tokens are created this way, you exile the tokens at the end of combat. Okay, cool. So it makes copies of itself. Sweet. That's why the Master Multiplied, it's like, oh my God, this card is ridiculous. It's a red, a black, and 4 generic mana. They make you pay for it. 6 mana for a 4/3 rare legendary Time Lord rogue. It has Myriad, as mentioned. The quote legend rule doesn't apply to creature tokens you control, the tokens it would make of itself. Triggered abilities you control can't cause you to sacrifice or exile creature tokens you control. So that's just like a whole myriad, if you will, of possibilities of crazy things that this thing is able to do. And just to me hints at like how sweet a character this is for it to do all of this stuff.
Yeah, this is just fun, right? Just blast in like, okay, cool. You each get a 4/4, 4/3. You get a 4/3. You get a 4/3. And they just may not go anywhere.
They don't leave.
Do it again next time.
Right. It turns off the Myriad Exile thing. Just to be clear, that's what that last ability was like automatically.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. There's other abilities too, but like it just turns off the Myriad drawback and keeps making them.
Yeah, this card's absurd. Feels like this is gotta be broken. It's gotta be broken. Like, period, full stop. I don't know exactly how, but it's like a combat trick, kind of, right before this is like a surprise. I've killed you all, except for it's not even a surprise. It's just like you're threatening lethal like every turn in a deck that's built around this character.
I mean, if you could do like multiple attack steps in a row, you could kill somebody. Because then each one has myriad, so then you'd like exponentially get more things over 2 attack steps. Mm-hmm. That could potentially kill the board.
I mean, just think of like Unearth, for example. Like Unearth is not going to get rid of anything you unearthed. Like none of that stuff is happening. This card is amazing. It's got a TARDIS version, which is even cooler than the standard version. Like this is sweet. This is the type of creature that if I'm getting into Commander, I want to know what stupid things I can do with this card because it just seems insane coming and going. Ruben, what's number 3?
My number 3 is, I think, the poster child for the Dalek cards. It certainly, to me, is the card that, you know, when I think Daleks, I think Exterminate. And the fact that they gave us that and also put an exclamation point on it, it's really nice. Solid removal spell, and probably either the most iconic or tied with the Weeping Angels as the second most iconic villain mm-hmm. in all of Doctor Who, and just a really faithful re-representation of what that is. So Exterminate, very simple. 2 generic and a black sorcery. Replicate, tap an untapped Dalek you control. Destroy target creature, its controller loses 3 life. Solid sorcery speed removal, nothing special. But the fact that I can tap, you know, my Moth Dust Changeling, for example, mm-hmm. Or, you know, any number of other Daleks that are a lot of which are playable in this set, I'm on board with this card.
Yeah, I mean, all your Dalek tokens and things, just like tap, 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 and they lose 3 life per one that you destroy. So, you know, let's replicate it 3 times. You lose 12 life or whatever. Enjoy your stay. Like, thanks.
And I like the balance on this, that it's a sorcery, right? So you have to decide how many things am I going to try to get rid of and leave my shields down. But I'm going to do enough damage along the way that maybe that person can't attack me anyway, right? Yeah. So this is a pretty cool balance card. I like what it's doing.
Nice.
There's some very scary Dalek cards in this set. Genesis of the Daleks makes 6, I think. You know, not to mention cards like Mirror Entity, turning all of your creatures into Daleks if you really wanted to.
Well, of course. That just sounds like fun right there.
Right.
You know, and the Dalek Emperor, and I mean, the drone we talked about earlier. Like, there's lots of fun, cool stuff to do here, and they're pretty scary. Power Dragon, what's number 3?
My number 3 is a card that I probably is a very iconic episode, just from how emotional they made the artwork look, and I had no clue what it was. But it's Become the Pilot. It's 3 colorless, blue, for an aura. You can enchant a non-commander creature, and then you control the creature, Enchanted creature gets +2/+2 and can't be blocked unless it's attacking its owner or a permanent its owner controls. I like what this is doing. I like the idea that you could put it on your own thing and just have an unblockable creature that gets +2/+2 because it's not attacking you. So that's actually pretty cool. But you could also dictate different situations going on. Like you could just take the biggest thing and almost use it as a, you know what? It's not going to attack you, but I'm going to use your creature to just wipe up everything else since it's unblockable. And there's so many things that have triggers that if it, deals damage to the opponent, this thing happens. So like that could be really cool. Or in the case of, some of the different legendary dragons that need to deal damage to do their thing, this is a perfect card for those if you're in blue.
Yeah, give me here.
This is this is based on The Pilot, which is the first episode of the Capaldi series. And, obviously that's a pun and a play on television in general.
Right.
But yeah, I heard good things about this episode. I have no idea what it's about. But I did, when this episode came out and people were like, is Peter Capaldi really the Doctor? Like, doesn't feel... I feel like the response to Peter Capaldi was more controversial than to Matt Smith or David Tennant or Christopher Eccleston beforehand. And this one was pretty much... I mean, again, I haven't seen it, but was very well reviewed, so...
Yeah, I mean, there was that, can you live up to the so-and-so? And it's like, this guy, he's too old and blah, blah, blah. Like, no, man, he's got enough charisma to get there. Sure. So let's move on here to number 2. And speaking of, look, man, if I want to pick one, I'm going to pick any of all the Doctors. There's so many now, but any of them, David Tennant is my boy, all right? And my number 2 is the 10th Doctor. He was great. He made Don't Blink. I mean, the Girl on Fireplace, a whole bunch of amazing episodes. The 10th Doctor is a red, a blue, and 3 generic mana for a 3/5 mythic legendary Time Lord Doctor with Alonzi, which means let's go, by the way.
Alonzi.
Alonzi. Whenever you attack, exile cards from the top of your library until you exile a non-land card. You put 3 time counters on it. If it doesn't have suspend, it gains suspend. And old timey-wimey, 7 generic mana : time travel 3 times, activate only as a sorcery, and that means you can add or remove time counters from anything suspended or in a permanent you control, and just keep doing it, and it's incredible. And there's already like $475 for a serialized version, and the non-serialized version are still like going to $10+, and the card's dope, and people love it, and I love it. I think it's great.
Yeah, this is exactly the type of card you want if you're trying to do the whole time counters, whatever thing. And I like the idea that this clearly says this is what you want to do with this, right? So if there's a fan who wants to play this card, the card is telling you exactly what to do with it. So you don't even have to try too hard to build around it, which I think is actually a smart idea from a design perspective.
Right. Look for the word suspend and go.
When I was in college, a friend of mine had a Joyra of the Gitu commander deck, and this feels like the same type of commander. You could even slot this in just over Joyra, and it says whenever you attack, not whenever you attack with the 10th Doctor, whenever you attack. So it immediately puts them into the suspended area, which is huge.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's worth mentioning Jorah of the Gitu was a really, really popular Future Sight card. She was also a red-blue at a generic mana as a 2/2, and she had 2 generic mana, exile a non-land card from your hand, put 4 time counters on it, and if it doesn't have suspend, it gains suspend. So this just slots right in there, either as the commander for that deck now, or just as a part of that commander deck, which is also super fun.
And you're going to get to cast your big spells like Obliterate or Time Stretch or anything like that even faster now.
There you go. Ruben, what's number 2?
Hey, we were just talking about David Tennant, and perhaps the most famous, certainly the episode of Doctor Who I've seen the most. My number 2 is Blink. Blink is also a unique card in how it is formatted, and you'll double take a couple times figuring this out. Blink is 2 generic blue-black for a 4-chapter saga. Chapters 1 and 3 choose target creature. Its owner shuffles it into their library, then investigate. Then chapters 2 and 4 make a 2/2 black alien angel artifact creature token with first strike, vigilance, and whenever an opponent casts a creature spell, this permanent isn't a creature until end of turn.
Yeah, it was funny because this was my number 10, and I actually did the same thing you were just talking about, where I read through it and went, okay, cool. And I went, wait a minute, these Roman numerals are not in the right order.
Yeah,
it's doing the thing where it's not in the right order. Weird, like the show. Interesting.
Exactly, but it makes it more evocative of what happened in the episode, right? Like these angels are appearing and you're trying to decide to try to outrace them or bounce a creature and it disappears. And like, I kind of like that. Like, it's a cool way to get the effect of that episode without being like too on the nose, but still being mechanically sound.
Right. And again, try not to spoil it too much, but there's a point in the episode where the same kind of thing, happens, but it's totally different both times you see it happening. And that's the brilliant part that I was going on about earlier.
Contextually, the whole scene changes.
Yeah, it's wonderful. Yeah. Wonderful. Power Dragon, what's number 2?
Mine is a reprint here, and it's Heroic Intervention. Colorless and a green, instant, permanent you control, gain hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. This card will never get old, and everybody's going to still want these in every deck that plays green. Instant speed, save your board from a billion different things. Card is probably still going to always be $5, $6, $7 every time it gets reprinted. Creep its way back to being like 12 or 15, and then it'll get reprinted again. But yeah, this card just all around solid, nice to have as a reprint. Cool that it's going to get into more people's hands.
Yeah, this is a card this is a good poster child for one of those cards that's like Wizards has really noted that these are game pieces that we're okay putting in different products and not keeping the cost super duper high, because it just showed up in Commander Masters, for example. And, again, you want to be $5 to $10 plus card. Well, now we're kind of in the $4 to $6 range, because in many ways, this just makes it more affordable. And I'm okay with that because Magic cards are fun and this card is sweet. And I like the little story bit on it about the 6th and 2nd Doctors on there. That looks really fun.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And the Doctor, meeting episodes are also a super iconic part of Doctor Who. Mm-hmm. And so to put that on Heroic Intervention is perfect.
Nice. Let's move on here to our number 1. Ruben, what's your number 1?
So I've probably seen Blink the most as an overall episode. But the scene I've seen the most, the moment I've seen the most, is the Van Gogh episode when Matt Smith's Doctor and Amy Pond go to the Louvre with Van Gogh, and they meet up with Bill Nighy, and he asks, in 100 words, describe for me what Van Gogh means to art. And Bill Nighy delivers this beautiful, heartfelt speech, and it matches with the music, and the actor who plays Van Gogh is so emotive and brilliant in the scene. And one of the things that Bill Nighy's character says in that moment is that Van Gogh took the pain of his tortured existence and transformed it into ecstatic beauty. And that's my number 1 card, Ecstatic Beauty, which is 2 generic and a red for a sorcery with suspend 4 of 1 red mana. Exile the top 3 cards of your library. You may play those cards until end of turn. Put 4 time counters on each of those cards that has suspend. So this is a suspend decks suspend card. You're able to get more cards with suspend already suspended, or you're able to do the red impulse draw kind of thing. You're able to play this on turn 1 so that by turn 4 or 5, you're able to get the payoff. And late in the game, you can also just rattle it off. Not to mention the fact that we get this beautiful portrait from Alice Zhang, who I'm not familiar with as an artist. Looks like this is her first set as an artist. But boy, absolutely kills it with this art.
Yeah, that was the thing that caught my eye about this card, is obviously trying to replicate a Van Gogh-ish style of painting or whatever, but wasn't something that looks necessarily like Magic art or even that it belongs in the set. But when you find out about the episode, you go like, oh, well, this makes perfect sense. Like, this is a brilliant piece of art to have on this card.
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely gorgeous. I mean, if you don't talk about like fit in a theme with what it's trying to get at, with the moment for the show and the actors' likenesses and things, and it's just wonderful. And it's while we had both the Cool Stuff Inc. previews on these top tens, which is also kind of awesome.
Yeah.
Power Dragon, what's number one?
My number one is also a reprint that you don't see a lot of, but Heroes Podium. With the number of legends in the set, I thought this was fitting, but it's a 5 colorless artifact. It's legendary, and each legendary creature you control gets +1/+1 for each other legendary creature you control, kind of like Joda if you play current Magic cards. And you can pay X and tap it. Look at the X or top X cards of your library. Reveal a legendary creature from among them, put it in your hand, and the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. Like, I just figured with the number of legends in this set, which was quite large just because of the companions and the doctors and everything else, this is actually a really cool card to have just to grow your board, but also to help you find all the cards that you want to play. And we're kind of reaching a point that with these last few Universes Beyond sets and even what's coming next year, there's just going to be more and more legends that you're going to be kind of jamming into a deck that, who knows, maybe we reach a world where a third to half of our creatures are legendary, and this type of card basically becomes like a pseudo tutor.
Well, I certainly wasn't expecting a Born of the Gods card to be popping up on any lists, honestly, but we got there. Speaking of Alice Zhang and doing amazing work, and speaking of the most expensive card in the set, speaking of what is likely to be the biggest mistake of the set, I would argue, I appreciate the fact that they titled it in a way that they can reprint it, because they're gonna reprint it. Mother of God, Everybody Lives. Everybody Lives is pushed in a way that I was like, Wizards, are you serious? You understand this type of card at this low cost is going to be ridiculously expensive and seen absolutely everywhere, and we're already seeing that happen. It's a $20+ card just to start off with. It's a white and generic mana for a rare instant that says all creatures gain hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. Players gain hexproof until end of turn. Players can't lose life this turn, and players can't lose the game or win the game this turn. Everything stops. It just stops. You turn it off. Whatever y'all are doing, your weird stacks over here and your weird combos over there. No. Stop it. We're done now. The only thing that could have made this even remotely better would be split second, because Jesus, it just stops everything.
Yeah, this card also has a weird interaction from what we were looking at with commander damage, because technically you still deal damage. You just don't lose life. So you could still die to commander damage.
Is that true?
Card.
Yeah, but players can't lose the game or win the game, right? So
this turn,
but you already have the damage on. Once it resolves and goes to the next turn, state-based effects say you already have enough commander damage on you to die.
Same with infect. I can put you to 10 infect to 10 poison counters. You won't lose the game this turn, but then state-based effects happen and you'll be dead. That's really interesting. Is that how that works?
Some weird ways that this can kill people, which is amusing.
That is crazy.
And that's very Commander-esque, And again, this is like Teferi's Protection plus kind of, and that was a 3 mana card that's already $20+. And
also, this can be put on Isochron Scepter.
Mm-hmm. Oh God.
Just want to point that out.
On your upkeep.
Gotta be.
Nobody does anything. Thanks. What?
Now, this does not counter Cyclonic Rift. So, whereas Teferi's Protection gets around Cyclonic Rift, there are some things that this does that Teferi's Protection doesn't do, and vice versa.
Right.
This is also going to be a great counter to Thassa's Oracle decks in every format in which that's a thing. So
that's going to be probably one of the biggest uses on this card.
When it's this cheap, you go, Legacy wants things that are 2 mana or less. They really take a look at it. Legacy Vintage, I could definitely see this happening.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. It's a crazy huge effect, super powerful, super cheap, and those are the magical components into any expensive Magic card, and that's what we're seeing right here. And it was the biggest surprise to me, because I was like, what? Y'all pushed that how hard? Whew. And apparently a great moment in the show, which is awesome. But yeah, still a crazy Magic card. And that was our top 10 Doctor Who cards. You'll see them on screen right now. If you review, take a look at my list, Power Dragon's list, Ruben's top 10. And we want to hear from you about what card we did not talk about when we'll select our favorite to win $50 worth of anything at CoolStuffInc.com. But before we go, I want to thank my co-host. Thank you, Power Dragon.
Hey, always good to be here. And that was a good mix of cards from everybody. So good talk.
It's fun. Thank you, Ruben.
Hey, thank you so much for watching. And if you're Doctor Who fans in particular, let us know how we did. We're trying our best here. But yeah, let us know what cards we missed. And thanks for watching.
There you go. As we move on here to our final slide, I want to thank our sponsor, CoolStuffInc.com, our co-sponsor, ManaTraders.com, my co-host, Power Dragon and Ruben Bressler. You guys for watching and listening. I hope you support us at Patreon.com/MagicMikes. Please follow, tweet, favorite, share, subscribe, like, do everything social that tells people we exist. Catch us online on Twitch.tv at Magic Mikes, on Twitter at Magic Mikes Cast, our Magic Mikes subreddit, and like the Magic Mikes page on Facebook. But join us here next week. Same time, well, sort of, same place, for another episode of Magic Mikes. Good night, everybody.